Hi, Doula here of 26 years. You want to hear my birth stories? Well, okay then. Birth number one, I was 19 years old and I was pregnant in the dead of summer and I was addicted to ices and popsicles. I had taken a hospital childbirth class. I was on Medicaid and I was told that I would not be able to have an epidural because the state of Alabama in 1992 did not cover epidurals. At my first appointment with the OB, he was checking me and he said, "Would you like to feel your growing uterus?" It was just weird. But when my Medicaid kicked in, I was sent to the midwives because in my area, there was a group of midwives that were paid by the state to only take Medicaid, and that's where I ended up going. Anywho, I was a week overdue, and it was hot, and I remember being so miserable and waddling all the time. I had gained a lot of weight too, and I remember one nurse saying, "You're going to have a rude awakening after this baby comes." Everybody treated me really kind of stupid because I was young, I think. And I live in the South. I was pregnant before I was married. So that all invites some really great kindness. I started having contractions and they were painful, and then I would call and they would say, they're going to get more painful. And then I continued to have contractions, which now I understand is prodromal labor, because they weren't going anywhere. They weren't getting stronger. They weren't getting longer. I was trying to read the book. Everything that was happening to my body, I was like, what in the heck is this? In that stupid book, What to Expect When Expecting, which tells us nothing, because I couldn't pick up my phone and look at TikTok. I went to triage 7 times because I didn't know what was happening. And the first couple of times I was like, okay, you're right. I can wait a little longer. But one evening we were spending the night with my mom, and because I just wanted to be there. I was 19. I wanted my mom. I remember sitting Indian style on the couch with holding a pillow, screaming into the pillow every time I had a contraction. And I just looked up at my mom and my husband at that time and said, I don't know what's happening. I feel like I'm dying. I need to go to the hospital. Those contractions were so hard that I was like, if this is how childbirth is, I don't want any more kids. And when we got there, this last time, we were wheeled into labor and delivery, and the nurse who wheeled us up there said, yeah, she's been here over and over again. I keep telling her she's not in labor yet. My husband at that time said, we're not going anywhere. She is clearly miserable, and I am screaming through these contractions like something is really, really wrong. I was put in a curtain because there was like 4 other people, and a doctor, I guess, comes over to me and says, yep, we're going to break your water. We're going to start Pitocin. That was about 8 or 9 o'clock at night. They put me in a little bitty cubicle, like a little bitty cubicle that had one little bitty bed, and yes, it had a computer and one chair, but it was small. Like, you had to go sideways to get by the bed, and they could barely fit a chair over there because the computer was right there. So my husband was right there and my mom was sitting on the other side. All night long, they gave me Demerol all night long. I remember not being like 2 centimeters when I got there. Remember, I was on Medicaid and I couldn't have an epidural. I remember waking up screaming every time that the Demerol wore off. And the nurse would come in and say, just breathe with it, honey. I looked at her and I said, you breathe with it. And finally somebody came in and said, oh, she's complete. Let's go wheel her to the OR because that's where you had babies back in the 90s. And I remember watching the lights because I'm laying on my back, and I remember watching the lights. And I remember looking up and seeing my midwife ask my husband, do you think that she's tight enough down there? Really didn't know what that meant until later, but that was the husband stitch conversation. I was wheeled into the OR. She's down between my legs, and I'm barely able to see her because I'm laying all the way down, feet up in stirrups. She's asking me to push as hard as I could. Push, you've got to push, you've got to push. And this is really fuzzy at this point, but I had a nurse on this side that got up on a stool and was pushing my stomach for me because I was like, y'all, I am exhausted. I remember feeling this relief when he came out, just automatic relief. but no crying. I saw flashes of him go to the other side of the room with a nurse, and a nurse stood in front of me so I couldn't see. And I was trying to do this number, and I was like, what's going on? What's going on? And they wouldn't let me see him. I heard a gurgling noise. They were suctioning him out. And the midwife that was sewing me up because she did a episiotomy said, wow, he's going to have a headache later. A nurse finally came over and showed him to me, and she said, hey, we would like to go ahead and just take him to the nursery, and we will, because, we had to suction him out over there. Everything is fine. I was able to, kind of touch him, and then they put a warm blanket over me, and I went to sleep. I woke up in recovery with the best Sprite ever. I don't know how it got there, but it just got there.